All right, so I'll welcome you to GeoWednesday, or GeoOnsdag på norsk. And because our chairman in the department has other obligation, he asked me to introduce the speaker today, which is Professor Carmen Gaina, who's I normally classify her as a marine geophysicist. And she also likes going to cruises, both in warm Indian Ocean and Arctic areas. Just a few words about Carmen. She is Australian-Romanian, did her PhD in 1999 in Sydney, and then we managed to attract her to come to Norway in 2005, so that's 20 years now or more. But she came to Trondheim, where she worked with me and several others, which are here today. But then when we moved the group to Oslo from 2009, she also came in 2011. She was one of the directors for the previous Center for Earth Evolution and Dynamics, which lasted from 2013 to 2023. The deal was that I did 3 years and she did 7 years as a director. But after 5 years, she told me she wanted to try out Australia again, so she went back 2 years after being director of SEED for 5 years. When we got a new center, she said, I'll come back if we get a new center. And we have a new center for planetary habitability. And Carmen is one of the PIs. And the talk today, if I remember it, is the secret world of seamounts. So I'll leave the floor to you, Carmen.
Thank you very much, Trond, for the nice introduction. And good afternoon to all of you. I appreciate that you have chosen to spend the lunchtime with me and with the Seamounts that I'm very interested about. So I wanted to start this talk with a short movie which was taken by American colleagues in the Atlantic. Is a seamount in the Atlantic, but today I will take you to the world of seamounts, not only in the Atlantic, but in other oceans. And let's start with what is in a name. So seamount obviously will ring a bell and tell us that it's something that looks like a mountain, and people came with definitions, a large natural elevation rising abruptly from the ocean floor, and it has to be about 1,000 meters high to be classified as a seamount. So if we think about mountains on land, and we go and hike them, and we know their names, so how many mountain peaks you think they are on Earth? Any number it comes to your mind? 1,000 millions. And to my surprise, if this is correct, indeed, there are more than 1 million peaks or mountains in the world, and they have names. But the largest mountain chain on Earth has not been counted here. And I'm talking about the mid-ocean ridge. So here you see a map. It's a special projection that favors oceans. So oceans are in the middle. And you see these lines here. So there are plate boundaries, there are mid-ocean ridges, they are underwater. And they together form almost 70,000 kilometers of mountain ranges. With red dots here, you see the hydrothermal vent. This is where they are very active, and they interact with ocean water, and they produce these hydrothermal vents. And this is how it looks if we zoom into one of these mid-ocean ridges. This happens to be the Atlantic, and you see here thousands of peaks. So there are mountains everywhere at mid-ocean ridges, and they are young. So the ones that you see here next to the mid-ocean ridge valley are very young, and as we go further away, they become older. And some of them do resemble mountains on land. And I have chosen this example from the East African Rift. So probably you have heard in Africa, the continent is extending, and rift has been made, or several rifts, and along them there are many volcanoes, but not only. Some of these rift shoulders start to go up, and they are mountains. For example, these Rwenzori Mountains, which is the highest non-orogenic mountain on the world, so 5 kilometers. And some of these shoulders here at mid-ocean ridges do resemble this type of mountains. But most of them, when we talk about seamounts and when people think about seamounts, there are volcanoes, tiny or larger volcanoes on the seafloor. Again, there are many examples of how they look on land. And this is the Barren Bank volcano, which is on Jan Mayen Island in North Atlantic. And it is also very close to active plate boundary. And by the way, is the only Norway's active volcano more than 2 kilometers high. Fun fact, the highest mountain on Earth actually started as a seamount. So this is Mauna Kea in the Hawaiian Islands. This is more than 10 kilometers high, and this is because we also count the height coming from the seafloor. And it started about 1 million years ago to form, and eventually, after a couple of 100,000 years, it became subaerial, and it became this island. So what do we need to know more about all these thousands or even millions of seamounts which are on the seafloor? Of course, we need technology, and we can see them by using satellites, by using the height from the satellite to the sea level, and then we can figure out how the seafloor looks like, so we can detect that. But even better, if we have a platform which is closer to the seamount, a vessel, for example, that has technology that is using sound to measure the height, so it's called multi-beam bathymetry, or we can send other type of instruments even closer to the seamount, remote operating vehicles or automated vehicles that are going and using the same type of sound to measure the height, but also to map in very detailed the morphology and the bathymetry of these features. And here you see a map with green and orange dots. So the orange dots are all the seamounts that were mapped by satellite altimetry. And in green is the seamounts that have been also mapped by other platforms, especially ships. So it's only small amount of these seamounts which are properly mapped. So when we talk about, now because there are so many and we have now machine learning and artificial intelligence, people used the simple geometry that is believed to be for a seamount, let's say a volcano, a rounded cone, and is using the global map of bathymetry taken from the satellite and comes up with automated way of detecting these seamounts. And a couple of years ago, it was a big event and big news that more than 19,000 undersea volcanoes were discovered by using this technology and the machine learning. So what is the world really interested in seamounts, and why? So the concept has been introduced in the beginning of last century, but not only in 1940s, geology started to be interested in that. And if you see here a graph that is showing how the interest in seamount research grew exponentially from the beginning of 20th century. And today it is indeed a topic that is very interesting for science, and not only. And again, I emphasize that the more data and the more closer to these features data we have, the more seamounts we will discover. Here showing that if we just use the satellite data, so we do have tens of thousands, but if we go and look in detail, we may find even more than 100,000 seamounts. However, seamounts are not only just conical volcanoes. So I'm giving you an example here from the Indian Ocean. This is north of Australia, between Australia and Indonesia, Indian Ocean, and we have here a big cluster of features, of underwater features. You see they have different shapes, and Australians went and mapped those. And you see here that they are anything, they can be this volcano-like, but also more ridge-like or sea stars, so they gave names to all of that. And now we are asking the question, so why we have this enormous amount of volcanoes or mountains on the seafloor? And here you see again a global map with many, many dots. It's centered on the Pacific, and you see here the colors are showing the height. And just looking, having a glance at this map, we see that the highest seamounts are in the Pacific Ocean, and some of them are aligned, so they form the so-called seamount chains. So here we go into the world of geology and geodynamics. Why seamount form? Well, first of all, so we were talking about the Pacific. This is a Pacific plate. Our planet has plate tectonics that functioned for many hundreds of millions of years. And today we have all these colored polygons here are each a tectonic plate. And the red dots are the so-called hotspots. So a hotspot is a place where columnar-like, very powerful mantle material, it's coming from deep into the earth and is hitting the bottom of the lithosphere, going into the crust and forming much likely volcanoes. And this happened for a long time. And if we cut the earth and we are looking at places where seamounts can be found. So we talked about the mid-ocean ridge. We do have seamounts there. But as the tectonic plate is getting old, we have these plumes that form the hotspots and form seamounts. And again, as the plate is getting older and older, it's getting subducting. And even here, we could form seamounts. So the entire life of tectonic plate can encounter the formation of seamounts. And here I have used a cartoon by my colleagues, Conrad and Domeyer, who are interested in the geodynamics of seamount formation. So we have, and the scientists came up with different explanations for why we form seamounts, but one of them, and which is forming really the most, the highest and the biggest seamounts, is this mantle plume lithosphere interaction. We have talked about seafloor spreading, but also there are some other ways of producing these features on the seafloor, and I have listed here some of them. So I would like to go back to Pacific and to Hawaii and give you an example. So this is the so-called Emperor Hawaiian Ridge or Seamount Trail. And this formed long time ago, so more than 90 million years ago, or even longer. Some of it may have been now subducted. And the youngest one is active, and it's in Hawaii here. So we know from seismology, from mantle tomography, that indeed a mantle plume, it's coming probably from very deep, from the core mantle boundary, and is getting an impact onto the Pacific plate, which is moving or moved north or then west, and is this simple concept of having a hot source, and we have something moving horizontally, and having this seamount forming here. But it looks like it's not that simple, so many other processes contribute to this. For example, the hotspot, the mantle plume, can be deflected because the mantle convection is forcing it to do. And why it is deflected at some point, because the plate is moving, it can also encounter the mid-ocean region, start to interact, and then form these seamounts or ridges in between the hotspot and the mid-ocean ridge. So these are updated concepts of how this Hawaiian Emperor seamount chain formed. Okay, so I mentioned that the seamount topic started to be taken into account by scientists long time ago, but really the interest grew in the last couple of decades. And here, according to Scholar GPT, it gives me a number of topics that are mostly targeting seamounts, and it's getting mostly from geology, marine geophysics, plate tectonics, volcanology, then getting more into mapping this, and slowly the biology is starting to catch up, because you'll see seamounts are amazing places for a very interesting and variety of habitat. And lately, now people are also starting to think about conservation and the impact of these features on climate. So, as I said in the beginning, this seamount research was driven mostly by geology. Many more citations are because of that, but biology is catching up. And here is a nice conceptual figure published by a paper last year showing what happens around these seamounts. So they are not in a desert world, but they sit on the seafloor, and the ocean currents start to interact, so the water starts to interact with these features, and we may have localized upwelling here, and especially at the top here, they form a very rich upwelling habitat that is attracting. So because of that, different organisms start to form, and then fish will be attracted to that as well. So it is a very rich ecosystem that is forming around these seamounts. So seamounts research should be regarded as the confluence between geology, biology, and oceanography, at least. And I very much liked how a very famous oceanographer from Scripps Institution of Oceanography in California coined this. So his name is Walter Munk, and he called them the steering roads of the ocean. And indeed, so now also the oceanographers started to understand the importance of this geomorphological features on the seafloor. And here I am showing you a movie, a model. So here we have a single seamount and a simulation showing how the water is moving around this seamount. So you see that all sort of convection, water convection, ocean current convection starts to form around that. And if we have a number of seamounts, so this is even more complex. Okay, so now that we have an idea what a seamount is and where they are and what are possible ways of forming, let's go closer to home. This is a map of the bathymetry, so how the seafloor looks like in the Northeast Atlantic. So we are here now, and here is Iceland, Greenland, and here is what we call the Northeast Atlantic. And you see from the colors that some parts are shallower, some are deeper, and you see a lot of smaller features. And we know some of them are seamounts, others are not completely mapped. We can see here an asymmetry, for example, maybe more seamounts on the Greenland side than on the Norwegian side. In any case, the idea is that, yes, indeed, we do have a lot of seamounts closer to home. And one of them, and actually which is quite interesting, is the biggest and the highest seamount in Northeast Atlantic. It's very solitary. It's sitting here on an older oceanic crust, and it's called Vestery Seamount. It's very tall. Is more than 3 kilometers from the bottom. It's very shallow. And we had a look at it. So our former PhD student, Lea Belosa, and a team of geochemists, geology, geodynamicists from our university and collaborators, we asked the question, so how this new seamount, so it's less than 1 million year old, happened to form exactly there where nothing else was around. So we looked at samples, we had dredge samples, and we looked at petrology, geochemistry, but we also looked at the mantle tomography, meaning how the mantle underneath this part of the world looks like. And we have here slices from 400 kilometer to 50 kilometer. So I just want to draw your attention about these red blobs and about this line. So this is the Jan Mayen fracture zones, and it looks like the red blobs are kind of avoiding it, are north and south of it, but not exactly going through. So we came out with a model. So first, based on the geochemistry, we said that many sources contributed to the formation of seamounts. So it was the local depleted mantle, but also it had a signature of the Iceland plume, and also contamination with the continent. So what we think is that an arm of the Iceland plume started to go around the Jan Mayen fracture zone, basically hug the lithosphere of Greenland, and then came on the other side and helped to make this seamount. Okay, so now I would like to talk about something which is very dear to me. I was very fortunate to be part of this national program called Go North. And 12 institutions from Norway thought about what if we go together and try to make expeditions, research expeditions, targeting different parts of the science that we are interested. And this is also to link with what the international world marine geology and oceanography were doing. The last December, we were given time on Kronprins Haakon icebreaker, and we went north. So we went from Tromsø here to the Fram Strait. Fram Strait is the narrow passage between the North Atlantic and the Arctic, where the only deep sea currents are formed. And so we collected all sorts of data here, and going as far as north of Svalbard. Our main, one of the target, or our ultimate target, was this Ultima Thule, is black smoker. that was discovered also during a Go North expedition in 2023, and it's located here on the mid-ocean ridge, the Arctic mid-ocean ridge. Unfortunately, the ice was too thick, and we also had some technical problems. Therefore, we ended up here, which is called the Sofia Basin. Sofia Basin is north of Svalbard and south of this plateau, which is a shallow plateau called Yermak. And here I'm showing you a closer look at the bathymetry of it. And we do have two features here, which we call seamounts. So one is called Mosby, another one was Polar Stern. Mosby Mosby, it's a name that was also given to a mud volcano in the Barents Sea. So this is a different Mosby, it's the Mosby Seamount. Few words about why this Sofia Basin is interesting and why we wanted to go there. So it's an old basin. It's a much, or it's part of the older part of the European Arctic Ocean. So we think that it formed before the Eurasia Basin opened, so it was probably an aborted rift. And here is north-south profile from the Yermak Plateau to the Eurasia Basin margin. And you see that we have old features here, but in between is this Mosby Seamount. And if we look at a seismic line that is going also east-west into the Sofia Basin, we notice that the sediments are, in the last 10 million years, the sediments were nicely horizontally being produced, but before that it was something interesting. So probably some magmatic intrusions have influenced these sedimentary basins, as it was suggested here and interpreted by our former PhD student Juan Mezzacala. So luckily we could look at the Mosby Seamount bathymetry in much more detail, and this is due to our collaborators from Germany, who were actually the first one to map it. And what they did more than 15 years ago, so they went there, collected the seismic data, and also they dredged, so they, which means they picked a piece of rock without, with equipment from the vessel. So this is the piece of basalt that they have collected, and they dated it, and it came out to be about 13 million years old. So 13 million years old is way, way much younger than the Sofia Basin itself, which is maybe 50 million years old or so. And they also came up with this interpretation saying that this seamount so it has sediments on top, but it may have some also magmatic intrusions or flows, which could be or the product of the same event, so this Miocene event that may have influenced this part of the world. So why 13 million years old? What happened there? Well, at that time, it was the Fram Strait opening. So before that, Norway and Svalbard with Greenland, they were close together. But in the Miocene, so they started to drift apart. And because of that, this very narrow conduit was opened. And we think that at that time, it had been, the mantle was much hotter there, and this may have influenced the formation of the seamount and also these seals intrusions and so on. And this hypothesis was published not long ago by the group led by Juan Mezzacala. So we said, okay, so it's only this piece of basalt that was recovered by dredging, so nobody went there to see what is in the so-called in situ. Luckily, so we had this piece of wonderful equipment on the vessel, which is called a gear, a remote operating vehicle that can go to 6 kilometers deep. And also the icebreaker has this moon pool, so you can lower the instrument down through that moon pool, even if around it's ice. And we said, well, easy task, we just go there and we grab a piece of rock. Well, this is easier said than done. So this is one of the attempts that you see. So the robot arm is trying to pick a piece of rock, which visually looks like a solid thing, but not so fast. So actually, this is a piece of very frail type of rock, and it's a manganese crust. So manganese crust is covering a lot of these seamounts due to the chemical processes on the seafloor for many, many millions of years. So we ended up picking many rocks, and we tried as much as possible to get them in situ. This one was cut, and we have high hopes for this one. So we believe that this is at least the only piece of basalt that we have recovered. So here are students looking at the rocks and doing the first description of rock samples, and my colleague Alexander Minakov measuring magnetic susceptibility to try to figure out if any of these rocks are magnetic enough that we think that they may be basalt and can be dated. All right, so next, after looking at this Mosby Seamount, we went to another feature that we thought it's also a seamount. And indeed, looking at the bathymetry, again, compiled by our colleagues at Alfred Wegener Institute, it looks like it is this elongated, rather, type of seamount. And we have collected seismic data linking the margin, the continental margin, to this seamount. Now it was a lot of ice, so the data is not perfect, but at least we can see some morphology. You see here a lot of sediment, so it's definitely not a very young feature, but we see some reflections inside, so maybe these are the more original top of the seamount. And the way to figure out where to go and take the samples is, well, if we have seismic reflection, that it's perfect. So we went here where we had data from possibly this part being a volcanic part. And also we try to target the steepest slopes because we do not have very high sediments to be there. So we want to go to the so-called basement. And we have again sent the ROV down and climbed this seamount by this technique. And I will give you a glimpse of how the rocks look like. I mean, they do look like very, very solid, and so I have chosen this particular movie because I was absolutely baffled by all the creatures that you can see there. So this is a wonderful creature that I found out that it's a jellyfish, actually. I call it the Christmas bug because we were just a couple of weeks before Christmas, and I thought it looks like a Christmas decoration. I believe it's called ctenophore, and one of the jellyfish that also like cold waters. However, it was interesting to see it in December because their peak activity kind of finished in November. So maybe this means something. And also, we have seen this, which are very thick bacterial mats. Remember, this is a very old seamount, and it's far from any plate boundary, far from any volcano. So this is interesting in itself. So if we look biology speaking, so I'm not a biologist, but there were many biologists on the cruise. We had very different habitats and type of life on the two seamounts. So on Mosby, the one that was to the west, we had this kind of old-looking environment with a lot of sediments and with a lot of different sponges, and it looked like the ocean currents were not very, very powerful, whereas on polar stern seamount we have seen a lot of gardens, anemone gardens, and also I think these are called sea lilies. But the substrate, the rock substrate was also very different. I would say less sediments. It was also a slump there. So it was really very interesting. And probably the fact that an arm of the ocean current is going exactly through and probably south of these seamounts, as you see here, the map of ocean currents, play a big role into the type of life. Here we were climbing from 2,600 meters down up to about 1,500, and here this was much shallower, about 1.5 kilometers. So I'm coming closer to the end here with my conclusion. So seamounts are steering rods of oceans, as Walter Munk, the famous oceanographer, said. They are formed by volcanic and tectonic processes. They are there for many millions of years, or even tens of millions of years. So therefore, they are being eroded, covered by sediments. But very importantly, so they are teeming with life. And who knows, maybe the first life on this planet started on a seamount. And this is cartoon and some images from a paper that is reviewing all hypotheses of how life may have been started. At hydrothermal vents, this is one of the favorite hypotheses as well. But keep in mind that these seeps can go also through older seafloor and may end up with this type of life even farther away from these hydrothermal vents. I would like to thank all institutions and people who made this journey for me and for others possible. So first, the Go North, which was a wonderful initiative and project, and I hope this will continue in the new initiative, the Arctic Ocean 2050. We had two ministries who were financing the 4 cruises that went under the umbrella of Go North. The Research Council was also very instrumental in that, and also funding the Center of Excellence here at University of Oslo. And last but not least, the Go North 2025 crew and fellow scientists. It was absolutely an amazing experience for me. So with this, I would like to leave you with another small movie from the Polar Stern Seamount, and I'm happy to answer questions.
All right, thank you, Carmen, for a very interesting lecture. So, we have any questions? Nobody there? Ah.
Yeah, really nice talk. Thank you. I was just wondering, when you went down there with the robot there, did you have to look for a while to find exposed volcanic rocks, or did you go straight down and find it like you expected on the steeper part of the flank there?
So each climbing was between 2 and 3 hours. I could have stayed there 24 hours if possible. And it's very different from what you expect. So I had in mind compilations of many volcanic rocks that were imaged by other dives in different oceans, and they were nice and clean. So here are basalts and lava flows and everything. And here, when you go and look, indeed, they seems to be like very the rocks that you are looking for, but you have this manganese crust, which is very deceiving. So indeed, we had to try many places. As you have seen with the robot hand, we tried to see what type of rocks. We had to make some compromises and take rocks that looked like in situ, and probably because of erosions, they were slightly detached from the main body of the seamount. You have to keep in mind also that this is a place where you can have drop stones. So we had glaciers there, and bringing rocks from any continental coast of the Arctic. So it is a very challenging way to identify and retrieve the rocks that we were looking for. But in the end, we figure out that everything we have recovered are very interesting, even the sedimentary ones. So we are going to analyze them and get really into the secret life of that seamount.
So, Adriano, you had one? He's coming with a micro.
Thank you, Carmen. I was wondering if you managed to take any measurements of temperature close to the seafloor on a reference point away from a seamount and at the seamount, especially where you have the microbial mats.
Unfortunately not, but there are samples of seawater and some of these microbial mats that we have retrieved. So no temperature. We have to go back.
Others? Yes.
Hey, thank you very much. Is there any relationship between this seamount and the sort of similar age volcanism in the Svalbard area?
Yes, good question. Yeah, we are also looking into that. In Svalbard, I think it was more around 10, 11 million years, but yes, it is. I have my colleague Alexander Minakov, who went there and collected a lot of geophysical and geological, rock samples, and yeah. So we are looking at that possible correlation.
Were they taken oriented as well?
You have to talk with him. I'm not sure if he's here, but yeah.
Okay, we have another one there.
Thanks, Carmen. Just asking if there were these biologists around, like, did they hint to like which kind of microbes they were looking at, or like any idea like what they were actually, the deep microbial ecosystems?
Yes, I cannot answer that, but my colleagues who were looking at microbes, so they were much more interested to take microbes from the sediments as deep as possible, not necessarily from the seamount, but yeah, we keep in touch with them. So it's the University of Bergen group, the geobiology center there. Yeah.
All right, one final, yes?
Thank you, Carmen.
Yeah.
Are there any developments to get kind of remote drilling equipment down there? Because then you could be a lot safer of getting fresh samples.
I love your question. Yeah, that's my dream. Yeah, I wish that these remote operating vehicles have more possibilities to drill and to retrieve a longer core of that. So I think that's the future there. So all we had at this point was a saw. So we had to really find a very angular piece sticking out and then take that. Yeah, but yes, indeed, remote drilling is the answer.
Okay, I think I close it down then, and we thank Carmen once again.
Thank you very much.